Nabobs of navigation, this is Prof G, and we are about to learn how to programmatically navigate to a new view in SwiftUI. Now, up until now, we've been using a navigation link when a button is clicked, but here we have a conditional navigation situation. If the user is logged in or signed in correctly, we want to navigate to our new view. But if they haven't successfully signed in, then we want to remain on the login screen. The way we do this has changed with the introduction of the SwiftUI navigation stack, so let's navigate our way through big learning. Now, before we can navigate our way to a new screen, we need to create that new screen. So most of what we have on this screen is going to be the same as things that we've done before, but we will create a sign out button, adding some new Firebase Authentication sign out functionality. So to create the new view, I'm going to head to the project navigator, right click on the login view so that I create the new view below this view, and I'll select new file, SwiftUI view, and I'll name this list view, and we're ready to code. Now important, we're going to be adding code to this view to log out of Firebase. So we need to import Firebase here, or the code won't recognize the commands and data structures from the Firebase library. And we're already inside of a navigation stack from the prior view, so I'm going to delete the text view here and start with a list, open and close curlies, and we'll eventually update the list to show the list of all of the restaurants in our app, but for now, I'm just going to enter a text view saying, list items will go here. Then I'll set the .list style to .plain, and I'm going to disable the back button since the only way I'll get back is if I click the logout button, and I do that with .navigation back bar button hidden. And then let's add our navigation bar with .toolbar. We'll choose the option with just content, press return, and return again for the trailing closure to show up. And here we'll add a toolbar item view and select the option with placement and content. And to get the placement parameter to show up, I'm going to hold down the option button when I press return. Now the placement parameter should be .navigation bar leading, so it shows up on the left. Tab to content, press return for trailing closure. And here I'm going to create a button, one with just the title string, and the action is fine. The title will be sign out. Tab to action, press return for trailing closure, and I'll put in a to-do that says sign out here. Then I'm going to copy this entire toolbar item view. I'm going to paste it below so that we can create a plus button in the upper right-hand corner. Then I'll replace this button with one with an action and label. I'm going to tab and press return to get both closures. And in the action item here, I'm also going to add a to-do that says add item code here, and tab to the label. And this is going to be an image with system name parameter passing in the string plus lowercase. And that'll add a plus button. And the reason that I don't see the toolbar in live preview is that even though I'm inheriting the navigation stack from the prior screen, the login view, it doesn't show up in the preview provider here because I'm starting in this list view, but we know how to fix that. In the preview provider down here, just put a navigation stack around the list view call. And now I see my toolbar, and I see I forgot to change the placement for the plus button to the upper right, so I simply change the placement parameter to .navigation bar trailing, which moves it to the right. Now it looks good, and now we're going to want to dismiss this view and return to the login view if the user presses the sign out button. So we'll need a dismiss environment variable for this. Up top, we'll say @environment. Remember, it's not an environment object. It's easy to make that mistake. It's just @environment. And then in between parens, we'll say \dismiss. Then after this, private var, lowercase dismiss, and that variable is set up. Then down here in my sign up action, I'm going to delete my to-do comment, and our sign out code can throw an error. So we'll first add a do catch clause, and in the do portion, we'll simply say try, capital A auth, dot lowercase auth with the parens after it. That always gets the Firebase Authentication object. And then we just say dot sign out, open and close parens. That's all we need to sign out. And if this works, I'll just print out a message from the console that says log out successful. And out front, I'll put in a log emoji and an arrow pointing to the right. Then, very important, it's easy to forget, after we've confirmed that we've logged out, we want to dismiss to go back to the login screen. So we have to say dismiss, open and close curlies to make sure that we dismiss. Otherwise, if we throw an error in the catch clause, we'll print error, could not sign out. I'll preface this with angry emoji, and I don't think I've ever seen this error get thrown, but in a release app, you're always welcome to add an alert here. In case this shows up, you'd want to inform the user, but I'm going to assume it'll never throw this error in a release app. Feel free to change this later if you want. And that's it for our destination screen on the list view. So now let's take a look at how we're going to handle programmatic navigation in SwiftUI. Now, unfortunately, there are a few steps, but if you ever have more complex navigation with different screens and different navigation outcomes based on different logic, this setup will be very similar. So first, we're going to create a state variable initialized with a special NavigationPath type. Now, this is going to hold the path that we travel to get to our destination. For us, it's just going to take us to the list view, but again, you could have multiple destinations for different conditions if you needed that. Then we need to modify the navigation stack to include a path parameter with a bound value, which should be this path variable of type NavigationPath that we defined above. And this says, hey, this navigation stack will handle navigation based on whatever's in this path. But to get that to happen, we need to add a NavigationDestination modifier. This is going to check the path, and based on what's in the path, we can handle navigating to a different view. So we do that inside the navigation stack, otherwise this won't work. And notice we don't mention the path value at all, but this will be triggered automatically when the path value changes, and this string.self says we should look in the path value for a string type. The string is going to represent a view, and if that view is the list view, then we're simply going to navigate to the list view. That's what this call to list view does right here, so we don't even need to put in a navigation link. If we get here, we just leave the current screen and navigate to that list view. Now, how do we actually get this to happen? Well, when the conditions occur that we want to navigate away from, we're simply going to append our trigger to the path variable. So for us, it's just going to be appending the string list view. We'll append this to the path variable after we successfully log in or successfully sign in, and that appending to the path variable is going to trigger the NavigationDestination modifier to run. So when this appending happens, we jump to the navigation destination and run this code. Now, one more bonus. Right now, the user needs to log in every time they open the app, but if they've already logged in and they've opened the app again, we can log them in automatically by adding a .onAppear modifier that checks to see if the current authenticated user is not nil, and if that's the case, we're logged in, so we can just append list view to path. That'll also trigger the NavigationDestination modifier we have up here, taking us to the list view. So again, that's quite a few steps, but we can code this up and we'll get exactly the behavior we want. And unlike using a navigation link with a button click, now we have conditional logic so that if the login or sign in doesn't work, we're not going to improperly navigate to that list view. We can remain on the current login screen. So back to Xcode to add this code. Now all this code will be in the login view, so let's head there. And we'll first add that new NavigationPath variable with @state private var path equals NavigationPath, open and close parentheses. So now this path value will be passed in as a new parameter for the navigation stack, and this is used to detect when we're triggering programmatic navigation. So we'll add parens after the keyword navigation stack, enter the path to add the path parameter, and then this is going to be a binding value, so we'll say $, and I'll paste in path after this. So what this does is this navigation stack will trigger a navigation destination if this path value changes. So we need to add a navigation destination modifier that will be triggered when the path changes. Now I'm first going to add this in the wrong place so that you can see the error that will occur when we run this, but we'll move it after we see the error. Now, even though this is in the wrong place, we're going to write it properly. So I'm going to code fold the navigation stack, and it should be inside the navigation stack. But I'll put it at the end of the navigation stack right after the alert. We'll say .NavigationDestination. Select the option with for and destination parameters and press return. And now for the for value in here, what this wants to know is what type we're looking for in the path variable. And to specify this, we just say string.self. Then tab to the destination and press return for trailing closure format. And we could put any value in here, but I'll call this lowercase view. It will relate to the name of the view, so view is a fine name. Then for the code in between the curlies, if view =, the string list view, spelled upper camel case, just like the view name, open and close curlies. And if this is true, we'll just say list view, open and close parens. This is going to navigate us to the list view, that screen that we created at the start of this lesson. So this navigation destination modifier is triggered when the path value changes. So now we need to write code to actually change the path. And what we'll do is we'll just append the string list view to the end of the path value. Now, when do we want to do this? When we've successfully registered or logged in. So down here in the register function, we put in a comment that said load list view. We can delete that now. And path is actually an array, and it can be an array because you can actually append several different destinations if you wanted it to jump through several different full screen views. So what we're going to say is path.append, and in between parentheses, we'll pass in the string list view. That triggers this guy here. And when we find list view in the path, we will run this code and go to the list view. Then I can highlight and copy this single line and paste it over the comment in the login function because I want to trigger the navigation destination if the login is successful as well. Now, one more thing we want to do is that bonus that I mentioned. When the view first appears, we want to check to see if the user has already logged into the app previously, and if so, we can navigate to the list view. We'll do this by adding a dot on appear below the navigation destination modifier, and this is the right place for the on appear. So on appear doesn't need to be moved, and in here we'll just say in between the curlies, we'll check to see if the user is logged in when the app first runs, and if so, we'll navigate to that new screen and skip the login screen, and we do that with if capital A auth dot lowercase auth with parens after it dot current user not equal to exclamation point equals to nil. So this says if there is a current user, so the current user is not nil, then open and close curlies. If this happens, we have a current user, so I'm going to print. And actually what I want to do is the same thing that I do when I log in. So I'm going to copy the print statement and the path append statement, and I'll paste it in between the curlies here, and that'll take me to the list view. That's it. And I'll build and run, and you'll see the weird error that you'll get if the navigation destination modifier is outside the navigation stack. And notice we didn't generate any build errors, so we built without errors, but we see a yield sign in our app, and the console says there is no matching navigation destination visible. Now that's because our navigation destination was outside the navigation stack. If you see this, you need to move your navigation destination modifier inside the navigation stack. So we'll do that now. I'll highlight the whole navigation destination, including its curlies, cut this out, then unfold my navigation stack, and I'll paste this code, how about right after setting the navigation title bar display mode to inline. So paste the navigation destination in right after this, and now with everything in the right place, we'll build and run. Hammer time, no errors, and hey, I'm already on my list view. What happened? Well, I was already logged into my app, so that's why I'm on this screen. My programmatic navigation worked great, so let me press the sign out button. The logout works fine. It dismisses me back to the login view, which is just what I wanted. Now let's try logging back in, and if I just type on the keyboard stays up, and I can click on the next button and jump to the password field. Perfect, we did that in the prior lesson. And if I type on my Mac's keyboard, which you're not seeing, that dismisses the simulator keyboard, but I can type faster. And then when I click in login, if my email and password are registered, I log in successfully and programmatically load the next screen, the list view screen. Nice! So this works perfectly. And by the way, if you head to live preview and enter a valid email and password and then click login, then if you press the live preview button to start over again from the beginning, live preview remembers that the user was logged in after restarting your app, so you end up moving to the list view screen. And that'll happen each time you press play until you click on sign out. So that's it. Congratulations, we now have programmatic navigation working, and with our login working great, we're ready to start adding and reading data from the cloud. That's up in our next lesson. Keep hacking.